Honourable Member for St. Michael North.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I see that the member for St. Philip West is really unable to motivate himself to speak in this debate, and I am therefore going to take him out of his misery. But just to say that I have the same problem that he does, because I too have serious concerns with what is really happening here today. And in this regard, Mr. Speaker, Madam Deputy, I'm actually looking beyond the physical document that was there in this Parliament on Monday. Because I have really been in this Parliament now for some 23, 24 years. The same time as the member for St. Michael North East, the member for St. Lucie, the member for St. George North. And this is the first time, Madam Deputy, over that period, that I have seen 6 estimates presented in a 5-year period. It really is the first time that I've ever seen it. It really is unprecedented and improper, because although, Madam Deputy, it is constitutional, it means that this government is seeking to take control, financial control in particular, over a year, for the period of a year, for which rather has not been given any mandate to govern. Yet it is seeking to take financial control over that year. And it is improper, and I therefore feel, Madam Deputy, really very reluctant to participate, because you have to be careful that you are not seen as giving credibility to something that is really totally wrong, unprecedented, and in fact unnecessary. But as the government will say, and certainly it can say, that this is perfectly constitutional, I will go on, Madam Deputy, to make my other and perhaps more serious point, my more serious objection to what's happening here. Madam Deputy Speaker, after the 5th of March, this Parliament is going to dissolve. But every single Minister of Government is going to continue to have full power, to function with full power and authority vested in him or her. There are 3 arms of the state. There's the executive, which is the cabinet. There's the legislature, which is this Parliament. And there's the judiciary. And one of them, Madam Deputy, the legislature, which is this Parliament, which exists and functions not only to pass laws, but also to serve as a check and balance on the behavior of the executive, which is the cabinet. This legislature is going to dissolve on the 5th of March, while ministers are going to continue to have full power and authority to govern this country, without the Parliament being able to play any role whatsoever. My concern, Madam Deputy, is that thereafter, which is post-March 5th, and until whenever an election is called, you're going to have those, particularly the Minister of Finance, who's going to have the power, certain vast powers, and the potential is there for serious excesses and abuses of power. And there's one in particular, Madam Deputy, that concerns me, and this is to be found in Cap 67B of the Laws of Barbados, titled the Duties, Taxes, and Other Payments Exemption Act, Cap 67B of the Laws of Barbados, Section 3, which empowers the Minister of Finance, and it reads as follows, Madam Deputy: notwithstanding anything contained in any enactment, the Minister of Finance may, by order, A, grant an exception to, or B, remit or refund any payment made by any person, business, or undertaking in respect of the payment of any duty, tax, or other money. Madam Deputy, this is an extremely vast power granted to the Minister of Finance. So the minister can, by order, exempt anybody at all from the payment of anything at all that he feels like in relation to duties, taxes, or any monies due at all. Now, under that provision, I'm going to get to that. under that provision, it has to be done by order. That order has to come, is to be laid in Parliament, and it is subject to negative resolution, also stated in the said Act, which means that this Parliament would have the authority ordinarily to debate it and even veto it, except that post-March 5th, this Parliament cannot meet and therefore will not be in a position at all to veto anything that the Minister of Finance does. This Parliament will not even know what the Minister of Finance is out there doing, who he is granting waivers and extensions to. And even if we do know, we can do nothing about it because we cannot meet to debate it or negative it. So, Madam Deputy Speaker, I want to say that those who want to can trust this Minister of Finance with those powers, but I do not. I do not and cannot trust him, Madam Deputy, with such vast powers. And that is really why I started by saying that I have great difficulty and reluctance in participating in this estimates debate as though it is business as usual, because there are those who might think that my participation is to be seen as my, in some way, condoning or giving credibility to what is happening here and to the possible abuse of power that could easily happen post-March 5th in this country. And, Madam Deputy, I am not. If a Minister of Finance could have been as bold as to give sandals and cost you less, the sort of concessions he did when he had to lay and was able to lay and did lay an order in Parliament, indicating that he had done so, I fear, Madam Deputy, what he will do when he is unable, when Parliament cannot have any oversight whatsoever of what he's doing, Madam Deputy. So what is happening in this chamber today is really not only a farce, but it is a dangerous, dangerous farce. It really is. And I really, any participation by me post my speech in here today, the jury's out. The jury is really, really out. Because what is happening here today is an abomination. It really, really is. But one thing, Madam Deputy, I can say about the estimates, one thing I can say about these estimates is that it really, these estimates really represent the most blatant admission of failure of this government today. The estimates, the document actually laid, it really represents the most blatant admission of failure of this government today. And even the Minister of Finance himself recognized that, because he sought to take us away from the estimates altogether and went into another plan. Of the 5 hours he spoke, he spent about 3.5 hours on a Barbados Sustainable Recovery Plan instead of dealing with the actual estimates that he had laid in this chamber, because he knew that it represented, those estimates represented a failure. But even if we could accept that this recovery plan contains good policies, even if we can accept that, you could never ever trust this present administration to deal with the implementation of the proposals and policies contained in that plan. Not after that same administration has been found guilty of failing to be able to implement, formulate in the first place, but certainly implement any of the previous 7 plans that they outlined that they said would have reversed the economic slide and fortunes in this country. And Mr. Speaker, Madam Deputy, I want to look at the last one that came to this chamber prior to the one this year, which is the financial statement and budgetary proposals 2017, presented to this House by the said Minister of Finance last year. I want to read what he said, Madam Deputy, at page 54, in terms of what would have happened to this country as a result of the policies that he introduced in this chamber last year. He said, the measures in total, this is at page 54, the measures in total account for an additional $542 million as a result of increased revenues, expenditure savings, and divestment proceeds. Therefore, with the revised deficit of $537.6 million, The new measures will effectively lead to a small fiscal surplus of $4.4 million, not a zero surplus, zero balance or negative, but a small fiscal surplus of $4.4 million. Said this balancing of the fiscal accounts will yield to a primary surplus of 7.34% or $702.4 million. He then concluded on that, under that head, the impact section of his budget by saying, having demonstrated that these measures are necessary to stabilize debt levels and to create a platform for the realization of greater, more sustainable growth, it is anticipated that economic activity will rebound after a short period of sacrifice, and we will all reap the rewards. We will all reap the rewards, Madam Deputy. So last year, we saw in that budget, as we call it, the Minister of Finance introduced the most draconian measures ever introduced in the history of this country. And he made the extraordinarily bold predictions about what they would achieve. And he said, the Minister of Finance put $542 million in taxes on the people of this country, an SRL, foreign exchange commission fee, increase in excise taxes, etc. Murderous taxes. As I said, we were to achieve a fiscal surplus, stabilize our debt, and create a platform for greater and more sustainable growth. But most importantly, Madam Deputy, we were to reap the rewards after this one-off sacrifice. But I ask, Madam Deputy, where are these rewards? Where are these rewards that we were supposed to be reaping after a one-off sacrifice? Doubtless, the Minister of Finance will say that we will get our reward in heaven. He will probably say that. And I certainly hope that we all get our reward in heaven. But for right now, Madam Deputy, we are on earth. And the Minister of Finance was speaking on earth. So where are these rewards that we were supposed to be getting? Where are these rewards for the average Barbadian? Why were we asked, Madam Deputy, to bear all this pain? That is what we went through and are still going through. The facts are, the fiscal deficit only fell by 1/3 of what it was, and even that is being questioned by reputable economists. And let me say this in terms of the fiscal deficit, because this Minister of Finance has been guilty of some very serious fiscal irresponsibility. He has been quite fiscally irresponsible. This Minister of Finance has in his possession, and I don't think it's a secret document either, a report prepared by a lecturer at university, Justin Robinson, if I remember correctly, in which recommendations were made in relation to the consolidation of certain statutory corporations across this country. I think it's called the rationalization of the statutory boards. Now, Madam Deputy, when you get a recommendation like that, you have to pause. I am not knocking the Minister of Finance for looking at that carefully, because were I a Minister of Finance and someone presented me with a document saying that you have to rationalize the statutory boards around Barbados, I would look at it very, very carefully. And my response would be measured. You have to be cautious, because that sort of thing could cause disruption, and you want to make sure that there's minimal or no disruption. So I understand the pause, although 4 years to pause is a bit long. But having been told that you need to rationalize your statutory boards, you cannot decide to do as the Minister of Finance then did, to add more. You cannot add more. But that's what he did. On recommendations of a Minister of Tourism, the Minister of Finance decided that he was going to take the Barbados Tourism Authority, one board, and cut it down the middle, form two entities, duplicate posts, and these are not posts that a lot of small people were getting jobs for. Two CEOs, BTMI, BPTA, Human Resources Manager, top-level posts, totally unnecessary, totally unnecessary. So at the time when you were told that you got to rein in and watch your expenditure levels, this Minister of Finance, with fiscal irresponsibility or perhaps fiscal illiteracy, decided that he was going to, in fact, add a statutory board to the fleet of statutory boards across this country. Totally fiscally irresponsible, Mr. Speaker. Our debt, which was supposed to be controlled and stabilized, is still high and rising. 23 downgrades in a 9-year period or so, with 2 or 3 since the Minister of Finance delivered that budget last year. Our reserves, foreign reserves, seem to be in a sieve because they're just draining out all the time. And what is significant about this, the drainage of our foreign reserves, is that this is happening at a time in the heart of our tourist season, where reserves are supposed to abound. In the heart of the winter and tourist season, you are getting reserves declining on a daily basis. Not even stabilizing, falling and stopping, nothing, but decreasing to the point where, since the governor spoke some 12, 14 days ago, our reserves fell by another $70-something million since that time. And this is at a time when the Minister of Tourism is telling people that we have 3 consecutive record years of tourism in this country. 3 consecutive years record in terms of tourist arrivals. But the minister doesn't seem to understand that arrivals under him. And he is the only minister ever in this country of tourism that over the period of a decade, he has seen an increase, he says, he has seen an increase in the number of tourists coming to Barbados, but a decrease in the revenue earned from those tourists coming to Barbados. First and only minister ever, even since 1958, when we started recording stats in relation to tourism. Even his predecessors before him in the Democratic Labour Party, poor and abysmal as they were, they never ever found themselves in that position, where over a decade, you can talk about an increase in arrival numbers, but a decrease in money earned from tourism. And this is not even causing the minister to pause and say, well, something got to be wrong here. His concern is to get to the press every single day and repeat that statement. And get it repeated and get it carried out there that tourism is performing. But if tourism is performing and our reserves are falling, somebody got to really tell me what is going on. But that's the record that is there before us. The Minister also of Tourism spoke about the savior that Sandals is for Barbados. With all these massive investments, he said. And yet still, we have a situation where in the heart of our tourist season, our reserves are declining and declining significantly. So the Minister and the government, finance, tourism, government as a whole, monumental failures. And, Madam Deputy, remember, this government campaigned on the slogan that Barbados is more than an economy, it is a society. Well, I don't know how you can get the society part if you don't get the economy part, because you can't make love from a hungry belly. You can't do it. You can't make love from a hungry belly. So without the economy part of it, you can't get the society part of it functioning. So to break it down further, Madam Deputy, who among ordinary Barbadians in this society have benefited after enjoying the amount of pain that they have over the last 10 years, and who have reaped the rewards that the Minister of Finance spoke about in his budget last year? I want to know who is benefiting after all the pain that we have gone through. Sandals or scandals, yes, they can boast that they have been given a half billion dollars in reserves, so they can boast that they have benefited. And in fact, I just want to ask the Minister to clarify one thing, because the order that was made, that was laid in this chamber by the Minister in relation to Sandals, spoke only of one Sandals property getting the concessions that were granted. Since then, the Minister has indicated, and it's a fact, Sandals Royal has also been built. And my information is that they are also bringing all their vehicles, etc., duty-free. And I want to know pursuant to what, is this one of the waivers that I was just speaking about where the minister operates in secret? Because I want to know pursuant to what it would Sandals Royal be bringing all these things duty-free as well. This order that came here relates to the hotel, which is defined as Casuarina. So is Sandals Royal also getting these concessions? And will these concessions also apply when the other property is built on the Amma property in St. Peter, thereby giving Sandals, making Sandals the single largest owner of hotel rooms in this country without paying one single cent to the government for all these rooms? But they can say yes. They have benefited from the pain that's going on. In fact, you say if you get them broken, you can get it all for nothing. So they come to the government, a broken government, and they got it all for nothing. You know, the beautiful thing is that you wonder really what's happening, what Barbados has really come to, because when you look and see that even Antigua has decided that they consider this to be wrong and has to be revisited, you got a government in Barbados that continues to brag about the selling out of this and the selling off of this country to an entity to that magnitude. But, Mr. Speaker, so Sandals can brag. The small hoteliers, they can't brag. They can't say that they're getting anything from the PM because they have been granted some rights on paper. But Gutma, to get access to the concessions that they have been granted. Gutma. In case you don't know what that is, it's hard, impossible. They can't get it. I know you may not be familiar with the Barbadian terminology, Madam Deputy, so I'm just explaining to you. But, and so Sandals can brag, yes, they're benefiting, but the staff at Sandals, they can't benefit either. Because the staff up there, most of them on 2 and 3 day weeks, especially when occupancy levels drop, they drop to 2 and 3 days a week, and only when you have full occupancy levels, then they move back up to the 5 day week. So Sandals can benefit, but the staff that they employ at the lower level, they can't brag. And their top staff are all expats who don't pay any taxes here either. So, you know, they can brag and brag at that level. The people who have to endure the stench and the disgrace of having to smell and drive through sewage on a daily basis, they can't tell you that they benefit from any pain that they have to go through. They can't tell you that. You know, I would sincerely hope that the Prime Minister by now would have recognized something, because he has been really adamant in relation to the Hyatt Hotel that it will proceed, and he is defiant about the whole issue of the need for an environmental impact assessment. But I would trust that having had now the situation where sewage is rampant on the South Coast, and seems to be now starting to filter down here in the Bridgetown area, that the Prime Minister will recognize now, even if he didn't recognize before, the need for an environmental impact assessment in relation to the construction of the Hyatt Hotel on Bay Street. Because that will add so much sewage to Bridgetown that it would be foolhardy to decide that you're going to proceed now without recognizing that you've got to do a study as to what the impact would be on it. No one is saying that it cannot go ahead as a project, but you've got to do it and do it the right way and a way that would not cause further grief and further pain to Barbadians. Mr. Speaker, Madam Deputy, sorry, the people who have been waiting on their money from CLICO for the last 10 years, they went through a lot of pain and they have not reaped any rewards. The government is not coming with an little offer towards them, and the government is not doing them any favor. Let me make that abundantly clear. Normally, you would say if people go and invest their money in a private sector entity, then, and it fails, they should take the fall because they took a risk. That's how it normally operates. But when you consider that the late Prime Minister, when the fecal matter started to hit the ventilator, Madam Deputy, and people started to panic about their funds in CLICO, you would recall, Madam Deputy of all people, that the then Prime Minister of this country, late David Thompson, went public and said, fear not, all is well, and took $10 million from the central bank, it was, and put at the disposal of CLICO and assured Barbadians that it was safe to put their money in CLICO. He did that. You would remember that. You would know that better than ever, Madam Deputy, I believe. He did that, gave that assurance. Put your money in CLICO. And you know, I have two constituents now, husband and wife, who are in such horrible, horrible condition health-wise, because one took an inheritance from her mother, proceedings that she got under a will, $377,000, $75,000, and told me that she went and put it in CLICO. She wasn't going to do it. But after David Thompson said, no problem, she said she would never expect a Prime Minister to lie to a country. She would never expect it. And she took it up and put it in CLICO, only to find that CLICO collapsed a couple months later or whenever. And she lost everything. She went to pieces. But who wouldn't? So this government now, those people who were suffering, they cannot say that they have been reaping any rewards that the Minister of Finance said last year Barbadians were going to be reaping. Could not say that. They had to endure hardship as money in relation to CLICO was laundered through a certain law firm in this country. That's a fact. Had to endure that. How much million? 3.3 million or something. Laundered through a law firm in this country. That's a fact. And people associated with the firm still walking about holding their head high. People who were associated with that money laundering still walking around this country holding their heads high as if nothing happened. Those people have not reaped any rewards. Those people have gone through pain with no gain. In St. Andrew, at least you go through pain and you gain.
Honourable member, you wrap up now, please.
Sorry?
Your time is up. Wrap up now.
My time is up? Yes, madam. The people, I know you don't want me to talk that part, but I don't mind. No, Mr. Speaker? The young people out there who are now, they go to school. Do you know that it's reached the point where all schools in Barbados now are being considered unsafe zones? You can imagine that? That I heard on an extract.
Honourable member, your time is up. Take your seat.
Madam Deputy, my time is up. My time is up. Madam Deputy, I am grateful to you. I just think that the Prime Minister needs to let the people of Barbados decide whom they want to govern this country. I do not know what the delay is in that regard. I suspect it is because the Prime Minister is willing to hear that everything is in order in the electoral office before he decides that it's time to call an election. But Madam Deputy, I am grateful.